A flight path carved through the blackest night of the Atlantic, monitored by a system designed to be infallible. At 0210 UTC, the digital heartbeat of Air France 447 began to stutter, releasing automated distress messages into a sky so empty it might as well have been a void. 2 years later, under 4,000 meters of water pressure, a recovery team lifted a memory module from the seabed. Inside it was a timestamp that should not exist. 0614 UTC, 4 hours after the aircraft had already vanished from the world. Not corrupted, not random, sequential. A record written as if the plane had continued flying in a future that never happened. Then, an audio anomaly surfaced, suggesting the pilots were reacting to weather radar hadn't even detected yet. If the clock was right, AF447 didn't simply crash. It crossed a fracture in time itself. Now we descend. AF447, the black box that sent. Signals from the future, voices beneath the Atlantic. On June 1, 2009, Air France Flight 447 left Rio de Janeiro for Paris, carrying 228 souls across the Atlantic night. An Airbus A330, redundant systems, automated protections, digital safeguards layered upon safeguards. At cruise altitude, surrounded by towering convective clouds, the aircraft entered an area where ice crystals formed invisibly inside the pitot sensors. Speed data failed. The autopilot disconnected. The flight computers surrendered control back to human hands inside a storm no one on Earth could see in real time. No mayday was transmitted. Only ACARs, maintenance messages firing automatically, reporting cascading system failures. Then silence. Between Brazilian control and Dakar, the aircraft became a gap, not a crash. An absence, a missing icon drifting into darkness. For 2 years, the ocean kept it. Marc Dubois had spent decades above the clouds, mastering the invisible highways of the sky. At 58, retirement was no longer a distant horizon. It was approaching with calm certainty. He had already chosen the wood for the small sailboat he planned to build behind his home in suburban Paris. A man who trusted instruments more than instinct, who believed that numbers could tame chaos. Before boarding in Rio, he sent a final message to his wife. "I will be home for breakfast." That promise now floats like debris across time. A sentence spoken from a future that never arrived. Ana Lucia de Oliveira carried curiosity in her bones. A marine biologist returning from a conference, she had spent her life studying organisms that survive in total darkness under impossible pressure. In her bag was Brazilian coffee for her younger sister, carefully packed so the aroma would survive the journey. She had spent the flight sketching deep-sea creatures, animals that glow in the abyss where sunlight cannot penetrate. She was documenting life in darkness while unknowingly traveling toward one of the ocean's newest graves. Arthur Gante believed in permanence. As a structural engineer, he designed bridges meant to resist collapse for centuries. His camera held hundreds of images from the Amazon, evidence of something solid he helped bring into existence. At the gate, he texted his daughter, "The project is done. I am coming back to see you graduate." That graduation would happen, but he would not be there. The cruel symmetry is impossible to ignore. Men who built permanence, scientists who studied depth, pilots who trusted machines, all erased by a system designed to prevent erasure. The cabin lights dimmed to blue. The Atlantic waited below like a silent witness. And somewhere inside that darkness, something else was already recording. When Flight 447 vanished, the world responded with urgency. Naval vessels scanned the Atlantic. Aircraft swept grid after grid across a region the size of small countries. Satellites watched from above, blind to what lay beneath the storm systems that concealed the wreckage. The ocean is not merely deep, it is layered, violent, constantly moving. Currents erase trails. Pressure destroys evidence. Every passing day stretched the search area wider, dissolving certainty into probability. Floating debris was found first. Seat cushions, fragments of fuselage, pieces of the vertical stabilizer drifting like ghosts on the surface. But the heart of the aircraft, the black boxes, remained buried in silence 4,000 meters below. Without them, investigators were left with fragments and assumptions. The official narrative began forming early: high-altitude icing, pilot confusion, aerodynamic stall. A tragedy explained by human limitation. Clean, closed, comfortable. Yet the Atlantic delayed its confession. For nearly 2 years, the wreckage slept in darkness while speculation filled the void. The ocean floor is not passive. It consumes. Salt penetrates seals. Microorganisms feed on polymers. Time corrodes truth. When the recovery mission finally located the recorders in 2011, they emerged as objects that looked less like equipment and more like artifacts, coated in mineral crust, scarred by pressure, carrying memory that had survived where life could not. Technicians expected damaged files, incomplete logs, corrupted data. What they extracted instead was continuity, and continuity, in a machine that should have died instantly on impact, is where the impossibility begins. Inside the BEA laboratory, engineers carefully removed the memory boards from the flight data recorder. Each chip was cleaned under microscopes, layer by layer, as if restoring an ancient manuscript written in digital ink. The expectation was degradation. Instead, the sequence remained intact. Data flowed in perfect chronological order: 02, 10, 2, 11, 02.12, continuing toward the fatal stall that ended the flight at approximately 02.14 UTC. But buried deeper in the recovered sectors, after what should have been the final entry, another block appeared: 0614 UTC, a system-triggered cabin pressure adjustment, logged as normal operational behavior, 4 hours beyond the aircraft's destruction, not duplicated, not overwritten, not fragmented. Sequential. The recorder behaved as though the flight had continued climbing through another cycle of atmospheric data. Environmental readings shifted, turbulence patterns altered, temperature values aligned with sunrise conditions over the Atlantic, conditions that occurred hours after the crash site had already become a grave. At first, officials labeled it a timing corruption, salt intrusion, clock drift. But the internal counters did not reset. The data didn't jump. It progressed. Every packet referenced the previous one, as if causality had remained uninterrupted. A machine submerged in darkness had recorded a morning it never lived to see. And then came something worse. When the cockpit audio was filtered, investigators detected wave patterns layered beneath the alarms. Low-frequency signatures consistent with ocean surface conditions recorded at exactly the same 0614 timestamp. Not impact sounds, not debris. Waves. As if the aircraft existed simultaneously above and below the Atlantic. The clock was not broken. It was seeing twice. The BEA delayed the public release, citing corrosion and unreadable sectors. Months passed while the files were quietly isolated. Access was restricted. Independent analysts were blocked under encryption protocols jointly controlled by Airbus and Air France. Officially, it was a matter of protecting sensitive technical data. Unofficially, it prevented anyone outside the inner circle from seeing the impossible timestamp. Then the leak happened. A raw hexadecimal dump surfaced online, anonymously uploaded to an aviation forum before being rapidly removed. But copies spread. Engineers who examined it confirmed what the authorities had refused to admit. The 0614 entry was embedded inside the continuous data stream, mathematically linked to the prior sequence. No reset, no overwrite, no bit shift pattern typical of salt damage. It was native, generated by the aircraft systems in real time. Even more disturbing were the environmental predictions inside that block. Wind shear values matched meteorological models from later that morning. Atmospheric pressure aligned with data collected hours after the crash. The recorder wasn't repeating, it was projecting, as if the flight computers had accessed a future segment of their own timeline. This contradicted the official narrative entirely. If the systems had stabilized enough to log cabin adjustments at 0614, then the aircraft's internal reality extended beyond the moment investigators believed it had entered the ocean. The crash was no longer a clean endpoint, it became a discontinuity. Authorities insisted the anomaly had no operational relevance, but they couldn't erase it, because the data was internally coherent, and coherent impossibility is harder to bury than wreckage. Among the analysts who obtained the leaked data was Dr. Elias Thorne, a former satellite systems specialist who had spent his career studying signal distortion in high-altitude electromagnetic environments. What drew his attention was not just the timestamp, but the frequency spike embedded within the recorder's final transmissions. 142 Hz, a narrow band oscillation that appeared exactly as the aircraft crossed the storm layer where the pitot systems failed. Thorne explained that under extreme ionization, digital systems can desynchronize from linear time references. Aircraft computers rely on synchronized clocks tied to inertial and satellite data. If those references fracture, if the signal path bends, the system does not perceive interruption. It continues logging along an alternate temporal thread, not faster, not delayed, parallel. In simulations, Thorne demonstrated that when navigation data folds within overlapping electromagnetic corridors, systems can begin referencing predicted states as if they were current reality. The machine does not hallucinate, it extrapolates forward and treats the extrapolation as present fact. In other words, AF447's computer may have crossed a boundary where future environmental data became temporarily accessible. The pilots were reacting to weather that had not yet reached them, because the system had already seen it. The black box did not record after death. It recorded along a path that diverged before impact and continued for 4 impossible hours. A duplicate flight, existing only inside the machine's perception, and when the real aircraft hit the ocean, the digital one kept going. The official cause of the crash would remain aerodynamic stall, human error, loss of situational awareness. But buried in the annex of the recovered data was an entry investigators could never fully explain. 0614 UTC. A ghost written by a machine that should have been silent forever. Ana Lucia's sister still keeps the sealed bag of Brazilian coffee in her freezer. The aroma is gone now, but she refuses to open it, because inside that package lives the last physical trace of a journey that continued somewhere she cannot reach. Arthur's daughter graduated years later, placing her diploma beside a memorial engraved with her father's name. A promise fulfilled in a timeline that excluded the one who made it. Marc Dubois never built his sailboat, but in a shed outside Paris, untouched wood still rests where he left it, waiting for hands that vanished over the Atlantic before dawn. Air France 447 did not simply fall into the ocean. It exposed something far more unsettling. Our machines obey physics, but they also obey time, and when time fractures, even the most reliable systems can begin to operate inside realities that do not belong to us. The black box was designed to preserve truth. Instead, it preserved a contradiction, a record from a future that never happened. And somewhere beneath the Atlantic, beyond pressure and darkness, that impossible moment remains frozen, still ticking inside a memory that refused to end.